Welcome to another episode of Let's Cook Together. I'm registered dietitian Jennifer Stockler.
I'm Chef James Kuhn.
And I'm Josh Warner.
Today on Let's Cook Together, we are going to talk about canning. Let's Cook Together, we're going to be bringing some canning dishes. We're going to be starting with a tomato-based kind of canning product that you can use in multiple dishes. And we're also going to be making a strawberry rhubarb jam. All right, so we're going to begin with this basic tomato sauce that we can use, or canning sauce, that can be used in multiple dishes, which is going to be multi-purpose, which we love that about multiple dish, or about having those things. And it can be on your shelf all winter long, which is the best thing ever, to have fresh ingredients from the garden.
Exactly. Then you always have something to start with. You don't have to worry about bringing it all up from scratch.
Right.
You can start and you can make a from scratch recipe in almost no time. Okay. So we're going to start with, first of all, when you're ever dealing with canning, you always want to make sure that you do things safely. So what we're doing now is we've already pre-sterilized our jars and lids. So typically we just put them into boiling water for about 15 minutes. Take them out, let them air dry, and then you can keep the lids on them and keep them sterile inside, okay? So we've already done that. So now we can just kind of start the process of the tomatoes. So what we have to do first is get a nice pot of boiling water. And what we'll do is we just take the whole fresh tomato and we just pull the stems off, wash them first, of course, and then we just flop them in the boiling water, just to get the skins off.
One thing you can also do as well, to add a little extra flavor, you can throw these on the grill.
Yes, you
kind of
can.
roast them up on the grill. So it makes it really nice too. You get a little char action to it when you do your sauce.
So similar to when you see those canned products where it says roasted tomatoes and then they can them. I mean, same product you're getting, but you're doing it on your own. That's a neat idea.
Yeah.
Right.
Because my family, we've done canning for years, and this is the process we've always done with the tomatoes, to take the skins off before we started, our salsas or spaghetti sauces, things like that. But I like that little twist. We might have to do that this year.
Definitely.
Right. All right, so have been in here for about 3 minutes. So we just pull them out, and you can see that they start to split a little bit, which usually means that the skins have separated from the flesh of the tomato, which is exactly what you want. And then usually you can just do this in the sink, maybe under running water, and you just peel the skins, come right off like this. And then we can just rough chop them in the finished product that we have right here. So from this product here, now we can go ahead and start our tomato sauce.
So, Chef, do we strain seeds out of these?
No, we don't. I leave them in, personally.
Okay.
It's a preference. If you like to strain your sauce and get all the seeds out in the pulp, like pureed, and then strain it, you can do that. Personally, I like to leave it all in there because this is a quick tomato sauce. Like I said, it's not a refined, fully cooked sauce.
Right.
So it's just something that is a starter. So even in those processes that maybe you want to strain it, you could always do that down the road.
Okay.
But for this application, we're going to leave them in.
Yeah.
Okay.
I say no, nutritionally wise, I know some individuals who deal with maybe diverticulitis where they're a little bit leery about having some of those seeds. That's something you might want to possibly strain it out. But for the most part, unless you're looking at that, you don't have to strain it out from a nutrition standpoint. Keeping the whole thing intact would actually provide more of that nutrition.
Right.
I think it's warm and ready, so
Okay,
I'll
let's
let
do
you
this.
have that spot there.
Alrighty. So we're going to start with about 3 ounces of extra virgin olive oil.
I like
and then we're
that.
just going to put the garlic right in. So this is fresh garlic, 6 cloves, and we just peel them and smashed a little bit, but we want to leave them whole. We don't really want to chop them up fine.
Is that something, will they get broken down further
They'll-
probably as this cooks
As
along,
it
just
cooks a
knowing
little
the
bit, and
process
they'll kind of
of it?
melt in the olive oil a little bit first. That's what we're going to do right now.
Would you recommend any other type of oil to use for this? Now, extra virgin olive oil, it is an oil I really like. Good source of really good healthy fats. Are there other ones out there that you could use?
You can use whatever oil that is a preference for you. Safflower oil or sunflower oil. Canola oil is also another good one. I just like the extra virgin olive oil because it goes with the tomato.
It does. Yeah, I agree. And sometimes those other oils would have higher amounts of saturated fats. Something we do want to watch and limit. So that's where this would be a lower one. Another preference I like is avocado oil. So that's where I was kind of curious if that would be another good option.
You could actually use that, sure.
Yep.
Whatever your preference is. So we just do this garlic in here for a minute or two. And just when it starts to get a little brown around the edges like it is right now, that's perfect. If you take it too far and you brown your garlic too much, it gets tannic and it gets
bitter.
very, very bitter.
Yeah.
Right? So we're just going to go ahead and do this fresh basil here. It's like one bunch of fresh basil. I like to leave it whole and just kind of rip it because that really just gets some of the oils out. And I like to do it right into the oil. And then you can go right in with the tomatoes right after.
Basil's already smelling great.
Yes, it's very fragrant.
Very, very fragrant.
Yep. Just give that a little stir. So I cut these tomatoes in like about 1-inch cubes, and they will cook down. But this sauce doesn't cook for a really long time. It just cooks probably for about 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah, and
At a nice simmer.
I would say bigger chunks. I'm thinking if you're going to be using this into soups and casseroles, you're going to be cooking later on,
Right.
which is going to further kind of break down that tomato. So having bigger chunks now, don't be afraid of that because you're cooking later down the road yet.
Right.
So that's going to further help break that down.
Absolutely.
So then we're going to go ahead and add 4 teaspoons of sugar, 2 tablespoons of kosher salt, and then this is half a cup of fresh lemon juice, which really is just excellent for canning because what it does is it gives it the right pH level to be able to
Yep.
can.
I was going to say that's a canning hack there, kind of to add that in there, that acidity there. Again, with some sauces, most of them, especially tomato sauces, you're going to find you're going to have to add a little sugar, brings out some more of those flavors. And again, you need that little bit of salt in there as well.
All right, so everything's in here now. We're just going to let this come to a nice simmer and then simmer for about 15 to 20 minutes. Okay, so this has been simmering now for about 20 minutes. And you can see a lot of the water has reduced out of it. And the tomatoes are just now starting to break down. So this is just when we want to pull it now. So we're going to turn off the heat. And then we can actually start to get this jarred. So we have, these are pint-sized jars. You can use quart-sized jars if you like. Depends on, how much tomatoes you like to keep on your shelf.
Yeah, and how many
what
people you're
sizes
trying to
they
feed
are.
as well, really.
Right, if you have a smaller family, you might want to use the pint-sized jars so you don't have waste any.
Looks fantastic. It's just really nice and bright.
It is.
And the smell of it,
it's-
too, is very nice and fragrant, too. With
So
that
when
basil
you,
and the garlic.
when you fill the jars, it's important that you save an inch at the top of the jar.
Yep.
Okay? That's so that there's that air cushion in there to be able to create the vacuum that you need when the actual jar seals.
Yep.
If you don't have that inch of airspace, you won't get a good seal, and then you won't have a successful canning.
Yep, it would be a waste. You'd have to use the product right away in case that doesn't
Right.
seal then.
Right.
And you're seeing he has a nice little concoction there that goes into the jar and then you pour in because it's also keeping the rim of that jar actually clean as well, which is going to be an important step here in a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah, even the smallest minor defect in that rim can stop it from sealing. So you just got to be careful. And if you do splash some on there, just take a nice wet paper towel or wet rag, clean that top before you place your lid on there.
Yep, so you're just cleaning that top rim off if it would have anything on it. So again, depending on the size jars you have, you're going to get more or less of this product.
Right. So
Because you're seeing there's plenty left in the Dutch oven here.
right. So this recipe would make about 12 of these jars. 12 of these pint jars, or if you had quart jars, it would make about 6.
And you're seeing he has the lid, but he's also twisting the other lid on to help keep that top lid in place during the canning process, which we got the pot here ready to can with.
Right. Okay, so once he has those lids on, then we're going to submerge them into the boiling water. And when you can, it's important that you snug the jars, but not physically fully tight, just a little snug.
This little contraption here is you can pick these up at pretty much any store that you can get any canning supplies.
Yep.
Just makes it a whole lot easier. It's a lot safer for you as well.
Yep.
So you don't want to burn yourself here.
Yep, because there's hot water involved there, so definitely submerging those cans.
Mm-hmm.
And then how many minutes are we going to be having those cans in there?
These are gonna be submerged about an inch below the top of the water, and they're gonna stay in here at the boiling point for about 25 minutes.
25 minutes.
25 minutes.
Yep. And what you're going to do is you're going to watch around the rim. So as you have those two-piece lids, you're going to see as the jar and the product inside heat up, it's going to force that air out of the side of the seal. And so you'll see the bubbles kind of start on top of the lids there. And then once you pull them out, they're not automatically going to depress. So you're heating these up, and then you pull them out, and the cooling process is actually what's going to cause the seal.
Yep.
So we'll slowly pull that lid down.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So you'll know when they're done when you stop seeing air bubbles. If you look, you can see kind of some of the air bubbles popping up around them right now. So once it stops that, you know that it's pretty much pulled all the air out of those.
Yeah. So this is a easy hot water method of canning.
Right.
Where at home we do pressure cooking canning.
Yes,
So that's a little bit different because you have a pressure cooker. So the times vary just slightly depending on the product that you're using as well. So there is lots of research on the internet about that. There's books on that canning differences too. So there is multiple ways to do this to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, and what that pressure cooking does is it brings up the boiling point of the water. So it brings the boiling pressure, and it just helps you. Botulism is a big thing you're worried about when you do canning.
Yep.
So you need to bring it past 212 degrees in order to kill that botulism. So doing the pressure canning, it brings that boiling point up a whole lot higher. Make sure that it's taken care of, and you don't have to worry about that.
Absolutely. And that's something why you have to look at the times of when you're doing different products versus like tomatoes versus green beans versus fruit.
Right.
They're all going to have different times that they're going to have to sit in here to be able to assure that they're sealing and cooking through because of the botulism kind of things. So we want to avoid that type of food poisoning.
Yep. So while we're letting the tomato sauce finish up over there, it's in the canning phase right now. We're gonna go ahead and move on, and we're gonna do a strawberry rhubarb jam and strawberry rhubarb preserves. Absolutely fantastic, especially summertime. You
Yep.
got fresh rhubarb coming out of the field. You got strawberries that are looking big and beautiful.
Absolutely.
So we're gonna put those together.
And what a lot of individuals I don't think realize is they can make their own jam very easily at home.
Super simple.
Versus buying it in the store and the amount you would give versus the cost you're paying in the store, you'd actually save money in the end.
Yep. And if you got your strawberries growing in the field already,
Yep.
you're good to go.
Because that's two staples I know we have in our garden is we have rhubarb and strawberries. So the only thing you'd be adding is, a couple of these other ingredients. You use jars over and over and over again. So again, in the end, it will save costs, making it a lot cheaper for individuals.
Yep, absolutely.
And much like the tomatoes, you make a batch of this and it'll get you through the whole winter.
Yes,
Yeah, for sure.
absolutely. Preserving that.
All right, so what we're going to start out with, we've got about 3.5 pounds here of strawberries. We've taken the top off and we just kind of quartered them, halved them. So total wise, you're looking about 2 quarts,
2 quarts of them.
of strawberries here.
And that's something, these are going to be breaking down during the cooking process. That's why you don't need to cut them any further than that.
Right. So I've already got some of the rhubarb cut here, but we're just going to chop up a little bit more. So we're really just doing half moons on them. So we've taken our stalk, we've cut it in half, make it a little bit easier. We're just taking half moons, about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch thick. And again, this is just to help it cook down a little bit faster.
So when you get this rhubarb fresh and out of your garden, Obviously, you just want to wash it and clean it up. Pull the leaves off of it. Basically, it's ready to use.
Yeah,
from that point.
absolutely.
So kind of just, it's very, very similar to celery as well, as far as the shape and consistency of it.
I know one thing at home that I like to do is anything I have left over of these two, I freeze them.
Sure.
And that way, if I do run out of, let's say, jam, in February or something, and I want some more, I can easily take these out of the freezer and still be able to make jam.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
nothing goes to waste.
Not at all.
Right.
So we got 5 cups of our sliced rhubarb there. I'm just gonna go right in with that. So if you never had rhubarb, it's kind of sweet, but it's kind of tangy as well.
Yeah,
So it
absolutely.
has
Yeah.
a little zip to it.
And that's why you're going to need that little bit of extra sugar, though, too, with this. So we got some sugar here. You're going to see that's a common staple in jams. So you're going to get that with that to get that sweetness that you're using. In the end, it's going to be how much you use at the end product.
Yes,
Exactly.
absolutely. So we're gonna add a little bit of salt, just about a teaspoon of salt in there. And then we're gonna take our lemon, press it down. This is gonna help us get some of that juice out of there.
Yep.
But we're gonna zest it as well. So we just want to zest about half of it. We're gonna zest it right in there. And
Brings out some of that flavoring,
brings
too.
out some of the flavoring, but don't go too far because you can get it down into the rind. You just want the yellow part of it.
Yeah.
If you get too deep in there, it's gonna get bitter. It's not gonna taste very good.
Right.
So we got that there. And then we're just gonna take it. We're gonna have it.
You smell those oils that come out from the skin.
Yep.
Just
I was just going to say, we can
Very
smell
nice.
smell the
Yes.
lemon just by zesting that.
Yep.
And kind of it's just refreshing to go with this fruit.
So then we're just gonna take half of the lemon, and I like to just kind of hold my hand underneath it.
Catch the
Catch those seeds. We don't want those in there. That's not gonna be tasty on our toast or whatever we're gonna have these preserves on. And just get all of that juice out of there. It's already super, super fragrant, so I'm just gonna mix that in. And again, we have talked about it every single time we do something on this show. We love these Dutch ovens.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I think we've used it every single episode.
Every
and
single
how
episode,
versatile.
yep.
And you're going to find that when they're cooking this right now, they're not adding water or a lot of juices because those fruits are going to have natural juices that are going to come out and break down together. So you don't need to add all that extra water to be able to cook this.
right. Exactly.
All right, so just let that go for just a few minutes there. And we're going to add, we got about 3 cups of sugar.
Yeah, if I
So-
know it seems like a lot. For those of who might question, like, can I use any kind of other types of sugars or artificial sweeteners? For this, I would highly recommend sticking with the sugar. It's going to be the best when it comes to this canning process. Because in the end, yes, if you're looking at, let's say, counting carbohydrates, something like that, we're looking at, just how much you use at the end product, being aware of the amounts. You can find some of those sugar-free ones that use, I think, Splenda or something like that. I mean, it's possible maybe you could use half and half, play around with it. But again, most often for many of the jams you're going to see, it's just the regular sugar.
Yeah, it's just like those barbecue sauces that we talked about in our last episode.
Yep.
Or one of the last episodes. It's all about how much you have of it.
Yep.
So there's our 3 cups of sugar in there. It's smelling fantastic already.
Really, the great thing about making strawberry jam or any kind of jam really is once you get it to this point and you get everything incorporated in, you can kind of just get it on a nice low simmer and you can walk away.
Yep, set it and forget it.
Yep. Just let it go and let it do its thing.
And that's one thing about canning in general. It is a long process. So you do want to make sure you have some time in your day.
Right.
Because you're cooking these things for a long time. If you're hot water bath canning them, it does take a little bit of time. It's a long process. And I know when we get deep into the garden season and we're canning tomato sauce, salsa, to green beans, to spaghetti sauce, pizza sauce. I mean, we're talking whole day adventures here.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of time up front, but it's so worth it at the end, having this available on the shelf all year long.
Right. Absolutely. So this is going to cook for about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Or so. So again, like we said, have your time. Find a nice book that you can kind of sit down and read while you're
Clean
doing
those
some of these
dishes in
things. So-
between times, something
Absolutely.
like that. It does take time. Speaking of jams, there's so many other types you can make out there.
Yeah.
A staple for us right now is black raspberry jam. That's something that, again, my family, they have woods. We go out and pick them. That's another good one.
Yep.
We put mulberries in it. There's so many different types of jams you can make. Play around and have fun. Kind of put all the berries in one. I mean, there's so many varieties.
Yeah. You can add blueberries. You can do in the wintertime when you have at the beginning of the winter when citrus comes out, you can do a nice orange marmalade as well. Get that fruit juice in there and pit those oranges and lots of zest, and you're good to go.
Yeah, and I think one thing to think about too is these are things that you can go out, take the kids and take the family outside and do. Go wander through the woods, go find, looking for antler sheds, but while you're at it, pick some blackberries or pick some blueberries, bring them home and do something like this with it. So,
kids love to help.
Yes, they do. But if they're like my son, he eats half the ones he picks, so we're not left with many after that. But it is enjoyable, and we do have so much fun doing that.
Yep.
So yeah, definitely a family event. Even teaching your kids how to do this too.
Yeah.
Because I feel like sometimes canning, I hate to say it's a dying art. It is. I feel like not as many individuals do it anymore. But it's something that can just save so much money in the end of it all. It takes work. And I feel like more with individuals working full time, mom and dad working full time, that's where we're seeing less and less of this. But it's worth it to take a weekend and do this.
And I think at the end of the day, you're getting a much better product than you are if you're going to the store.
Yeah, you know what you're putting into it.
The preservatives are not in there.
No preservatives,
what's
no
going
additives, no artificial flavors or colorings. It's
and
just
that right there
100%
makes
natural.
a big difference, because when we're talking health and you're adding those things in there, there is a connection there with many different health disease states, inflammation markers, that reducing those added preservatives, those colorings, things like that. There's some sense to that. So we're back letting this jam kind of just cook a little further. But because it does take a good long time for this to cook down before we can even begin to look at the canning process, and unfortunately we don't have that amount of time to share with you, we're going to kind of just explain kind of what the final product looks like. But you're going to see right in front of us the final product that we have of each of these tomato sauces and the jam.
Right.
So once this is cooked down, about an hour, right, completely cooked down, that's when, again, just like the tomato kind of sauce there we have, we're going to do the same thing with the jams, where you would add that jam into the jars and you would put them into a hot water bath. Now, the question is, how long do we put them in there for? Is it the same as the tomatoes or not?
For these jars, yes. These are about 20 to 25 minutes.
20 and 25 minutes.
Yeah.
So let's kind of talk about, since unfortunately we have this cooking a little bit longer, what happens afterwards? When this is all done cooking for either of these, what are those next steps that we do afterwards?
So it's important that when you take them out of the boiling water, set them on a nice clean towel on a flat surface and just leave them be, let them cool in room temperature. You don't want to stick them straight into the refrigerator. You want to keep them out onto a nice flat surface and let them cool.
And don't start messing with the lids or pushing on the button and things like that. It's really, we're looking for, after half hour, 45 minutes, depending on the temperature differential, we want that lid to suck down, and you'll notice that there's kind of a divot in the top of the lid. Once that pulls down, that's completely sealed. But if you go through and you start pushing it down early, you could have a
You're
false
not going to seal it.
It's not going to seal. So you could go to use it in 2 months and it'd be completely molded, not be any good, be sour. Could end up with food poisoning. So it's really an important step to just let them cool. Let them cool for 24 hours before you ever really start doing anything with them.
And that's what we do at home too in the canning process. I know oftentimes when you're putting them down on the towels, countertop to let cool, you're going to hear them actually start sealing because they do a little pop. So you're going to hear these pops, and that's a good thing to hear to make sure that is ensured that it's sealed as well. And also one thing about, I know after they're sealed for 24 hours, you're going to want to put them on the shelf somewhere, let them sit. If you're transferring these jars one to the other, be careful, because if you move these jars around a lot, that can also affect the sealing of it, because you want to make sure they're upright. You don't want to be jarring them around at all. You don't want to be, putting them in the car and letting them flop all over the place, because it will affect the seal. So you do have to be very, very careful if you're transporting them to a loved one's house or, a friend's house. I know a lot of times we're putting them in boxes and then we're, putting packaging between them. Because again, those things can affect the seal at the end. This is something that this should be good on the shelf for a very long time. Typically, we recommend making enough that would last you a year till the next time you have these products available. It can go on the shelf longer than that, but there's no reason there's no reason to make all this and not being able to use it. You want to use all this stuff within a year of making it.
I do have one last tip also. It's very important that you should put a date on them when you make it.
Oh, absolutely.
So that you know exactly how long it is that you have them on your shelf.
Black Sharpie right on top of those lids. We usually have what it is in case we forgot some of them, because they can look similar if you're making pizza sauce versus tomato sauce versus spaghetti sauce. They can all look familiar. Different types of salsa. I know we do mild, hot, kind of those types of things. So those are things we also write on there. We put the date, the year that it was made. So definitely all things. I know you can get the nice fun labels in the front too. But if you're anything like us, good old Sharpie marker on the top works well.
Works well.
Unless you want to make nice gifts. These make great gifts to do. I know a lot of times with my coworkers, I make jams for them. I'm trying to think. There's jellies I've done, pepper jellies I've done for them that we can. So many options available. We were talking about even doing pickles here. So much you can do with canning that keeps that food on the shelf for your family. Helps with the cost, especially with the rising cost of food in general. Growing a garden, having that garden available all year long by doing this process is something that can be so helpful in the budget and your pocketbook in the end.
And healthy.
And very much healthy, which we all know that is something that I like to help with individuals as well, is keeping that there. So unless there's anything else, I think that's all with canning today. So we thank you for joining us for this episode where we talked about these different canning processes, and hopefully it inspires you to maybe start canning yourself.